I had never been close to my grandfather. Growing up, we rarely visited him, and when we did, we weren't allowed to stay long. He lived alone in an old rotting house on the outskirts of a small town in West Virginia. The kind of place that had more trees than people and more secrets than stories. After he passed away in 2022, I was named the sole inheritor of his estate. No one else in the family wanted anything to do with the house. They called it cursed. I called it an opportunity until I stepped inside. The house hadn't changed since the 70s. Faded wallpaper, dusty furniture, the smell of rot soaked into the floorboards. But what struck me most was the basement door. Heavy, steel-bolted from the outside with 5 separate locks. It looked more like a prison cell than a storage area. I asked my mom about it when she visited later that week. She just went pale. "He never let anyone down there," she whispered. "He said it was off limits for everyone's safety." I thought she was exaggerating until that night. At around 2:30 a.m., I heard something knocking from below the floorboards. Rhythmic, deliberate. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 more. I froze in bed, ears wide open, heart racing. I told myself it was the pipes, until I heard something worse. A voice. Faint. Male. Hoarse, like someone who hadn't used their throat in years. He whispered just one word. "Hello." I didn't sleep that night. After the knocking stopped, I sat there in the dark, gripping my blanket like a lifeline, ears tuned to every creak of the house. But nothing else came until just before dawn. It was faint, like someone whispering through a cracked door. I couldn't make out the words. Just a strained, raspy voice repeating something, pleading. I forced myself to get up. I tiptoed to the basement door and put my ear against it. Silence. But the coldness radiating from that door wasn't natural. It was bitter, like standing in front of a freezer that had something dead inside. I stepped back and left the hallway light on all night. The next day, I decided to investigate. I went through some of my grandfather's old belongings, drawers, filing cabinets, even behind picture frames. Eventually, I found a small, rusted keyring labeled B. 5 keys. Exactly 5 locks on that door. Something told me I shouldn't, but curiosity, or maybe something darker, pushed me toward it. That night, I waited until the house felt still. No cars outside, no wind. Just that unnatural quiet. I brought the keys to the door, hands shaking. One by one, the locks clicked open. With each lock, the air grew heavier, like something on the other side was getting closer. The final lock turned with a loud snap, and for a moment, I just stood there, staring. Then, I opened the door. A rush of cold, damp air hit my face. The stairs were steep and narrow, swallowed by pitch black. I grabbed a flashlight and stepped down, each creak of the wood echoing into the silence. The deeper I went, the more I realized how wrong this basement was. It wasn't just a basement. It was modified. The walls were covered in soundproof padding. The windows were bricked up. In one corner sat an old iron bed frame, bolted to the floor. Heavy leather straps were still looped around the edges. A rusted metal tray beside it held what looked like old surgical tools. And then on the far wall, I saw it. Scratch marks. Hundreds of them. Long, desperate gashes dug deep into the concrete, and words too. Words scratched over and over, in a childlike, frantic hand. "I'm still me. Don't listen to him. He's not me." Suddenly, the flashlight flickered, and for just a second, I swear I saw something at the bottom of the stairs behind me. A man-shaped shadow, standing still, watching. When I turned around, it was gone. But the last thing I saw before sprinting back up the stairs chilled me to the bone. Carved into the basement door, on the inside, was a single message. He never died. The 5th lock clicked, and everything went still. No creaks, no whispers, not even the usual groans of the old house. Just dead silence, like the building itself was holding its breath. I hesitated, then I gripped the handle and pulled. The basement door opened with a deep, reluctant groan, as if it hadn't been moved in decades. A wall of cold, damp air hit me. It reeked, earth mold and something foul like wet iron. Blood. I flicked the light switch. Nothing. Figures. So I pulled out my phone, turned on the flashlight, and took the first step down. The wooden stairs creaked under my weight. I counted each step out loud like a nervous child. 13 steps. All down into darkness. The air got colder the deeper I went, thick with moisture and something else. Something invisible but suffocating. A feeling like I wasn't alone, like something was watching me from shadows. Then my light landed on it. A chair. Old metal rusted in spots and bolted to the floor. Straps hung loosely from its arms. There were deep scratch marks in the wood nearby. Human-sized. Some deeper than others, as if made in desperation. I froze. That's when I saw the walls. Covered in drawings. Hundreds, maybe thousands of them. Charcoal, blood, and something like soot. Stick figures with hollow eyes. Some were smiling. Some were crying. Some were missing limbs. And then there was a name, repeated again and again. Benny. Benny. The name was carved into the wall behind the chair. Scratched in violently, over and over again. That's when I heard it again. A whisper, right behind me. He's still here. I spun around. Nothing. But the door at the top of the stairs had quietly closed. And I hadn't touched it. I stood frozen at the bottom of the stairs. That chair, bolted into the concrete, wrapped in old leather straps, was like something out of an asylum. The kind they used before laws changed. Before people cared. The scratch marks around it weren't just from fingernails. They were desperate, jagged, repeated, bleeding into the wooden wall. Whoever, or whatever, had been strapped into that chair, they fought to get out. For a long, long time. I took slow, hesitant steps toward it. My flashlight flickered once. My breath fogged the cold air. The smell was stronger here, iron, rot, and moldy skin. Then I saw something worse. A metal food tray, bent, rusted, and still holding what looked like dry, blackened scraps of meat. Flies crawled over it lazily, like they'd made this place home. Next to it, a bucket, half filled with something I didn't dare smell. This wasn't a basement. It was a cell. I panned the flashlight around, hands trembling, and then I noticed the walls. Dozens of papers, pinned with rusty nails. Old notebook pages, receipts, newspaper scraps, scribbled handwriting everywhere. I stepped closer to read them. He is not human. Don't feed him after midnight. Pray. Pray before you open the door. He copies you. Don't speak to him. I felt my throat close. These weren't ramblings. These were warnings. And my grandfather had written every one of them. Suddenly, my flashlight cut out. I slapped it, panicked. The darkness swallowed me whole. I couldn't even see my hand in front of my face. Then I heard it. Breathing. Low. Raspy. Not mine. It was coming from the far side of the room. I stayed frozen. Didn't dare move. And then, from the darkness, came a voice. Calm. Gentle. Grandson, you finally came. I dropped the flashlight. Because that wasn't my grandfather's voice. It sounded like mine. The pages on the walls were a diary, but not written by my grandfather. They were written by the man in the basement. Shaky handwriting, repetitive phrases, scribbled madness over yellowing paper. Some were torn, chewed on, or smeared with what looked like dried blood. I could barely read them, but what I could make out turned my spine to ice. He feeds me when the voices stop. It's louder upstairs. She screams from the walls. I don't want to wear the mask anymore. There was one page pinned in the center of the wall, larger than the others. At the top, in bold black ink. They think I'm the only one. I'm not. My hands started shaking uncontrollably. That's when I heard it again. Movement. Behind me. In the corner. Where the shadows were heaviest. I turned the flashlight and saw something. A figure, thin, pale, crouched in the dark like a wounded animal. Its face gaunt, skin stretched too tightly over bone, wide sunken eyes blinking slowly as if the light hurt. A mask dangled from its hand, a cracked, human-looking mask, worn smooth at the edges. It wasn't moving. I froze. My body screamed to run, but my legs didn't listen. Then it whispered, "He's still upstairs." I turned and bolted up the stairs, heart exploding in my chest, not daring to look back. I slammed the basement door shut, locked every bolt, and collapsed on the floor, gasping for air. But I made one mistake. I dropped my phone down there. I called the police the next day. They came. Opened the door. Basement empty. No chair. No notes. No bucket. No mask. Just dust. As if no one had ever been there. But a week later, a package arrived at my door. No return address. Inside, my phone. Unlocked. Opened to a new video file. Just 1 minute long. It shows the basement. Filmed from the ground. And at the end, just before it cuts to black, something crawls across the frame on all fours. Wearing my face. That figure in the shadows. It didn't move, but it was alive. It stared at me through those hollow eyes, breathing slow, raspy, unnatural. Its lips peeled into a twisted smile. And then, in a voice that sounded scraped raw from the inside of a throat, "I knew you'd come back." My legs refused to move. My body wanted to run, but my mind was locked in horror. That voice, it sounded like my grandfather. Not in tone, but in rhythm. In the way he used to hum under his breath. The figure held up the cracked human mask and pressed it slowly against its face. It fit too perfectly. Then I noticed something else, photos taped to the walls beside him. Faded, black and white, curled at the edges. Me, as a child. Different ages. Different years. Watching. Waiting. "He taught me to become what people loved," the figure rasped. "He said a mask is better than a face, because no one looks behind it." My heart dropped into my stomach. This thing, this man, this something my grandfather kept hidden for decades. He hadn't just been locked down here. He'd been trained, molded, warped, to mimic, to replace. And now, he was ready to go upstairs. The last thing I saw before I ran was him stepping out of the shadows, dragging something behind him. A suitcase. Old leather. Familiar. It had my name on the tag. And that's when I realized he wasn't just wearing a mask. He was wearing my life.